So my name is Emily Lytle-Painter. I'm here from the Getty Museum in Los Angeles, and I work in education. And we are going to show you today a little bit about prototyping. So this originally started after Dana came and did a workshop at the Getty, and we've had a lot of success at the Getty using prototypes since then. So what we're going to do is first I'm going to let my people introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Dana Mitroff Silvers, and I know some of you from the 11 years I worked at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art, where I headed up the web team, and I'm now a consultant working with museums on design thinking. And I also run the blog Design Thinking for Museums. And we want to warn you that this is going to be an interactive session. So we're going to actually ask you to interact with each other in real life, not with your devices. You're going to not be using your iPhone. So I just want to warn you, if you want to flee the room, you'll have a few more minutes, so we're going to have you work with each other. So I'm going to let Ahree.
Hi, I'm Ahree Lee. I'm at the J. Paul Getty Trust, and I'm relatively new to museums. I'm a user experience designer. I started at the Getty last year, and since then I've been trying to bring some common practices like prototyping into work that I've been doing at the Getty. I'll be showing a lot of slides of that stuff. Oh, and I spent many years working in technology at places like Apple and HP.
So we have a couple of co-authors who are not here today. Jack Ludden, Ben Hamley, and Trinh all contributed to our paper, which we hope that you'll read. So we're going to be filling in a little bit for them today, maybe talking about their projects, but I encourage you to tweet them or reach out to them by email and say hi and talk to them about everything. So in today's session, Dana's going to introduce prototyping and design thinking. Then we're going to do a hands-on prototyping challenge that it is going to be really fun. And then we're going to do, Ahree's going to introduce some real-world examples of how we have used prototyping successfully. And then we're going to have you do a little bit more talking to each other about how you can take this home and institute it at your own institutions tomorrow. So, Dana.
So what is prototyping? I assume you came here because you're interested in prototyping, maybe using it in your institution. In our paper, which I hope you will read, we define prototyping as the practice of building low-fidelity representations of products, services, or experiences in order to learn and test before proceeding. You are actually going to build a low-fidelity product today in this workshop. So that's your other warning. That's going to be interactive and hands-on. So prototyping. Prototyping is a tool for learning and testing, but it's also a tool for empathy. And this is something I talked a lot about in the paper I wrote last year about the design thinking process. It's about building empathy not only for your user, but it could be for your colleagues, for your staff, for your leadership in your institution, to build empathy and understanding for the users for whom you're making products and experiences. It's also a tool for exploring and inspiring also gets into inspiring your colleagues, your staff, your leadership. Planning and validating. This last term, validating, is my little shout out to a book, The Lean Startup by Ahree, which I recommend that you read if you haven't read it already. It talks about validating what you're making before you invest the time and effort to really build it out. This is a slide you've probably seen in other presentations, maybe over the years, about failing early and failing often. The whole notion that if you prototype and fail early in the process of whatever it is you're making, you will save yourself time, money, a lot of emotional grief. It's really important to think about doing this iteratively early in the beginning of anything you're making. So as we're going to talk about in our presentation, you can prototype physical things, which is what's most commonly thought of when you think of prototyping. You can also prototype digital experiences, but I think most importantly, what we talk about in our paper, you can prototype in-person interactions. So literally at the Getty, they're prototyping new structures of holding meetings, new ways of organizing departments, and you can prototype organizational systems and structures. So we'll talk about that briefly. So a term that we've been talking about a little bit is design thinking. Who's heard of this term, design thinking? So maybe like a third of the room. So design thinking is a process for innovation and problem solving. It is a methodology and a mindset. And it's a 5-step process we're really going to focus in on this process, the orange shape here, prototyping. We're not going to have time to really take you through it, but this is something that we're going to refer to a lot. It's a process of human-centered design. And like I said, today we're going to focus on prototyping, and we'll briefly start you with some of the other phases. Okay, so we're going to have you try it. So this is a how-to session. And we really thought design thinking is the thing you can stand here and talk about it, but you have to do it. And the same with prototyping. Instead of just talk, we want you to do it. So this is my warning again. This is going to involve some face-to-face, real-life interaction, and you're going to need to put away your device. So if you're here, come on in. We're going to do some prototyping. So we're going to get started. So what you're going to do is you're going to need to find a partner next to you, because you're going to be interviewing each other. So we're doing human-centered design. Oh, see, okay, I knew some people are going to leave. A little scary. All right. If you want to stay, this is your chance. So we are doing human-centered design. Human-centered design starts with people. In order to design for people, you have to talk to people and build a relationship with them. So get a partner. Oh my God, it's crazy in here. Holy shit. All right. So, okay. All right, if you're staying, can I have your attention? If you're going to stay with us. All right. So, all right, you guys are brave, because you're going to stay and do this. So you've got a partner. This is your challenge. You're going to think about how might we redesign the Museums and the Web conference badge to better facilitate connecting. So, to do this, well, first of all, I want to think about conference badges. Usually look pretty typical, although they did redesign this year. I got to say, this is nice, this is different. But most badges look like that. So, in order to redesign the badge for your partner, the partner you're going to work with, you have to start with a conversation. This is human-centered design. It starts with building empathy for your user. So you're going to interview your partner. We're going to time it. We're going to give you 2 minutes, and then you're going to switch. We've got some starter questions for you to ask your partner. What do you like most and least about your badge? Why? Why is the critical question here? You got to follow up with a why, because that's how you're going to get to the deeper human needs and emotions of your partner. And what do you like most and least about connecting with your colleagues? So we're going to give you 2 minutes to interview your partner, and then we're going to call time. You're going to need paper and pen. If you don't have paper and pen, we have our buckets.
Underneath the chairs in the center, there's prototyping tools, so if you desperately need...
Yeah, if you need paper and pen, we've got it. If you don't, or you could take notes on your iPhone. And we're going to start now.
All right, ready?
All right, got it?
Go. Two minutes has gone by. Switch and interview your other partner. Okay, we're going to move on to the next step. Now what you're going to be doing is working independently. You're going to use your new knowledge about your partner, about your user you just interviewed, to sketch out ideas for a new badge just for your user. So this is working independently. We're going to give you 2 minutes and sketch on paper. If you want to make notes in your digital device, that's fine. Think about a new badge specifically for your user. And Emily's going to time us now. You have 2 minutes. Go. I'm going to use this opportunity to remind you that prototypes can be more than just physical things. Remember, they can be systems, they can be experiences. Just putting it out there.
It's time. Okay, we're moving on to the next step. This is what you've all been waiting for and why you came to our session, because it's going to be the most fun. You're going to build a prototype. So we have supplies here in the aisle. You are going to build a prototype of a new badge for your partner. We're going to give you 4 minutes, and I want to remind you of something before you start building. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be beautiful. And you're designing for your user, not for yourself. Whoever you just interviewed, you're designing for them. So we're going to give you 4 minutes. You can use these supplies. You can use anything you want to build your prototype. And we're going to start now. So we have
I just want to point out it's actually okay if your prototype looks very unfinished and kind of crappy, because it leaves it more open to interpretation in interesting new ways.
All right, I'm going to call time. Okay, we're moving on. We are moving on. And I am so touched that I got a prototype. I didn't think I'd get a prototype. Thank you so much. So we're moving on. Now what you're going to do is, whoops.
Oh, wait, sorry, no.
Go. Okay, you are going to hand the prototype over to your user and get their feedback. You can ask them to describe what excites you most and least about this prototype and why. And if you could change one thing, what would it be? You're going to interview your user for 2 minutes, and then we're going to have you switch time. You have to hand it over to your user. That's awesome. Marco put his on. That's what I want to see. You have to let go and give it to your user. Yes. Yes, you can describe it. If it's a thing, describe it. Yes, absolutely. Okay, congratulations. You just completed your first design cycle. Hello? All right. Congratulations. You just went through an entire design cycle. And you had, 4 minutes to build those prototypes? Imagine what you could have done if we had given you more time. We just wanted to give you a little taste of the power of designing for a user and building a quick and rapid prototype. So we want you to now, we're going to think and reflect on this really briefly and then move on and kind of go up to the 30,000-foot view and talk about how we've been using this in a practical application.
So did you guys have fun? Yes. Does anybody want to share any feedback or anything about the process? I mean, I'm seeing a mask. You get 10 seconds to share. Go. So you listened to what he had to say and created a solution. Anybody else? Good job. Straight back.
Well, Angela came up with a great idea with a little pocket on the back for business cards. Do I have to say that again? Oh, Angela came up with a great idea with a little pocket on the back of the badge where you could slip in business cards.
Anybody else? Good job.
So this is one that Alicia created for me, and it has lists of my interests and recent projects that I'm working on that are listed right here. So opens the conversation, easy talking points to meet new people.
So did anybody have an aha moment during the process? Yeah?
Yes, we kind of did. We both decided that we actually didn't like badges, that they felt like you're a walking billboard, and it's really only serving maybe the branding for the company and for the security guards, but it didn't actually help initiate conversation or help us get to know each other better. So we just sort of dispensed with it and went with like a wristband that would maybe have the Museums and Web logo, and would all have to talk to each other. And he made the same comment about not wanting to have to look at a woman's chest either to see what's on the thing. It's like embarrassing.
One more. Does anybody else want to share? Oh, perfect.
We had the same aha moment that Keely and I are totally different sizes, and the badge drops at different places, and if it's too low, people catch you looking for their name when they think you already know their name. So we dispersed with the badge, and we said everyone here has a phone with them, and so we're going to make a little like RFID that would say Museums on the Web. And what Keely liked about the current badge was that your name is the biggest, so that when you got close to someone, it would pop up big, Keely, and then you would scroll, and it would say what she's looking to do at this conference, and she's looking to find out about apps. And so you could, and then we also, what we didn't like about networking is sometimes you can get cornered in a wall, and you're like, oh my God, I gotta get out of this is a short conference. And so you could start your thing, and it would ring in 5 minutes, and go, I got this call, I'll see you later.
So shocking that the location-based stuff came from the Cleveland people, right? Yeah. Okay, so thank you all so much for participating. What I want to encourage you to do is please take a photo of your prototype and tweet it with our hashtag here, MW2014Proto. I want to see all of them flooding, all of these ideas. Crash the Twitters. So thank you very much. Let's give yourselves a round of applause. We're not done.
Now you can get back on your phones and start.
Okay, so now we're going to see some examples, some real-world examples of prototypes. There's a long history of making prototypes of physical things, and that's talked about in our paper, so we're not going to talk about it here. We are going to talk about some other things now. So I'm going to talk about 2 digital projects that I worked on when I was at the Getty this past year. The first is the redesign of the Getty's exhibition pages. So the group that worked on this was about 15 people. It included curators, designers, editors, and even some people from upper management. We all worked together to figure out how we could make the exhibition pages work better for various audiences, which included general visitors, scholars, and a group of visitors that we called enthusiasts. So we did a 1-week design thinking cycle with a whole group, and then another 1-week design thinking cycle with a smaller subset of this group. And most of the people on the team had never used design thinking before. So these are some of the prototypes that the team created. On the bottom right, you can see that's an exhibition webpage. This is an exhibition landing page that tells you about all the exhibitions going on. This over here is a mobile app, and over there is actually in-gallery signage. So you can see it's all incredibly rough. It's made out of the same kinds of things you guys just used to make your new badges. And we showed them to, we made these in about 2 or 3 hours. So incredibly fast. And we showed them to visitors and curators and scholars and got feedback on them. And the curators and scholars we had invited in advance, and the general visitors we just approached right in the museum. So this is us working on this project. And it's really messy, there's paper everywhere, there's lots of office supplies, and it's really fun. The second example is a little higher fidelity, but not much. These are made using balsamic, which is a wireframing tool. It's not actually designed to make prototypes with, but a lot of people use it to make prototypes anyway. This is a online scholarly publication about a 17th century Italian paintings manuscript. And we wanted to see if scholars understood how to navigate this and use the resources that are in here. So we made a click-through of a PDF prototype in Acrobat, and we had more of a control test than we did in the previous example. So we had a facilitator leading invited scholars through the site page by page and asked them for their feedback. So these are a little more high fidelity than the other example, but they're still really rough. There's been another iteration of these since then, and it's a little more high fidelity, but it's still also not the final form that it's going to take. And they were done in design, and they actually look really different from what you see here now because we got feedback and the whole thing has changed a little since then. So some of you may be thinking, really, low fidelity? And it actually works. People are a lot more open to giving feedback to something that looks intentionally rough because they're not being presented a final thing. They're not thinking, oh, I'm going to piss off this person who worked so hard on making this beautiful, polished thing. And so you get really interesting feedback from people. And then you can gloss over little details of interaction experiences. Like one time in this project, we were arguing over whether this one area should have a drop-down menu or if it should be an accordion. And then we realized, wait, we just need to know if these people want this information in this place at all. And then you can kind of make something a little rough that doesn't present that issue. And you can think big. You can think about things that are beyond the scope of the project. For example, this was an exhibition webpage project, but we had in-gallery signage and we had maps, and we were trying to get at this idea of people getting a starting point in an exhibition when they don't really know anything about the subject. And through that, we found out some information. We found that, yes, people did want that kind of information. It was validated, and so we've found a way to put that into the next version of our prototypes.
I'm going to talk about prototyping in-person interactions, which is, did anybody prototype something that wasn't a physical thing? Huh, nobody did, okay. Do we have any? So prototyping can be used for things that are not things. This is a prototype here at the National Air and Space Museum. I worked with them in December. We were prototyping a new location for the information desk and new staffing models. You can see it's pretty rough. It was really easy, done very quickly, to prototype around traffic flow and wayfinding in the museum. This here is Liz, who's right here. This is when at the Getty over the summer in a workshop I did with the team there. You were prototyping a kids butler where parents could come to the museum and drop their kids off with a butler service that would watch your kids so you could enjoy the museum without your kids. And one of the big insights that I remember their team had was that parents were really wary of leaving their kids with strangers, obviously, and wanted to know what kind of insurance the museum had, because one of the options you had was that they would take the kids off to do activities around LA. So that was a really interesting finding, and we found it out very quickly by going out into the galleries of the Getty Villa with this sign. So I want to show you that you can prototype things that are more experiences and services. This here is one of my favorite prototype pictures. This is at Balboa Park in San Diego. I worked with them in January. We were prototyping new ways to improve the visitor experience in the park. And this was a prototype of an electric self-driving car that visitors could check out and take around the park. And you can see it's made out of little kids' school chairs and cardboard boxes. What you can't see is the steering wheel is made out of a paper plate, and there's a touch screen made out of Post-its where you could navigate yourself around the park. And one of the things we found in testing is kids want to grab the steering wheel. And parents thought, oh, wouldn't it be good if my kid could actually maneuver the steering wheel, but then I could take over so they won't crash the car. So you would have a little like fake steering wheel for the kid, and the parent could have the real steering wheel. And was something the team never thought about. So they stuck another plate there and had a family sit down and try it where the kid could pretend they were driving. So these are kind of things we learned out really quickly with a paper plate out in the park. Structures. So Emily's going to talk about prototyping even in a more abstract way.
So something that we have thought a lot about as we've been writing this paper is all the different ways that you can test something. And at the Getty, it's very hard to change things. I have a couple colleagues up here and they're like, yep. So it's very difficult. If you want to change a department structure, it takes a long time. So instead of doing that, what I've been trying to do in my department, which is education, is create different groups that are informal and operate outside of the department structure, but create new ways for us to interact across silos. And you'll see in this photo, we have people from our family audiences, artists, school, as well as somebody from the web group. And we've been using this model as a way to sort of test what we need to be talking about and what we're missing. And it's a place where new ideas can bubble to the surface. It's been really successful, I think, for my group, and they're actively prototyping in this photo, as you can see. But I think it's also been, well, that's kind of meta. They are prototyping while the group itself is a prototype. So I've been trying to use it as a way to sort of conceive of how we can interact with each other. And I think that if you begin to follow that line of thought, you can see how you could prototype new ways of reporting, new ways of managing projects within your institution. And I think that there's a lot of possibility there.
So now you are all prototypers. You all just prototyped something which seemed like it was pretty successful, and it sounded like you guys were having fun. It looked like it from here anyway. And what I've seen is pretty cool. So you guys should all start prototyping now at home. It's really easy, it's fun. You can start with a small project or a project that you control on your own, so you can decide whether or not you want to prototype. You can start with people who are excited about it. You can find a colleague who's also excited about prototyping, or tell your colleagues about it, and if they get excited, then you know who you're going to start prototyping with. And change will bubble up, even if you are afraid that people above you are not excited about it or want to quash it. Things have a way of finding a way to happen. If you want it to happen, you'll find people, and those people will find you, and it will work out.
I want to point out that that's Ahree's boss in that picture.
Oh, yeah.
Totally digging it, Jack Ludden.
Yep, that's, it bubbled up to him, that's for sure. And another thing that can help is you can find a space where you can leave all your prototyping and results of prototyping, all your design thinking stuff around. So this is we don't really have a lot of walls in my immediate workspace, but we have a lot of windows, so we just kind of made do with what we had. So this is the digital publication project that I showed you earlier. We have like the war room wall where we put all of our stuff up, our schedule and all of our wireframes and notes and things like that. So this is my coworker's desk, and mine is just behind it. And people walk by and they go, oh, what is that? Or if they know what it is, like, oh, wow, you're doing this already, or how did that go? Or they see like some designs that I'm working on and say, oh, how's that presentation go? Or they get ideas, or they give us ideas. So that physical act of leaving stuff out can really lead to things too. So to help you get started with this, we made a little worksheet. And
Does everybody have one?
does everybody have one? So just take a minute and write down some ideas for how you can get started with prototyping back at work. There are 4 areas you can fill out. Try to fill them all out if you can.
We're going to give you a minute to fill it out, and then you're going to share what you come up with a partner, either your state partner or someone else. We're going to start the timer.
So we have some resources for you. The first link is to our paper on the Museums and the website. The second one is Design Thinking for Museums.net, which is Dana's website about design thinking in the museum context, which has a lot of resources there too. And the third is the D School at Stanford, where there are a lot of resources for running not only prototyping sessions, but design thinking sessions in general, and lots of papers and other resources. And then the contact information for all 3 of us. And don't forget to tweet your prototypes.
So we want to open it up to questions. I can't believe look how much we just did in 45 minutes. I mean, it's pretty amazing what you guys made in 5 minutes' time. So we want to open up questions, comments, thoughts. Marco?
I have a question about the space where prototype. Should I?
Yes, sure.
So yeah, my question is about it's easy and more effective maybe to prototyping in the physical space, but more and more happens that the design firm is in the West Coast and the museum is in the East Coast. Have you ever experimented the prototyping using some tools on the web or online, something like that? Which is your point of view about that?
Yeah, I mean, that was what Ahree showed us, like using balsamic to do digital
Okay.
prototyping. It doesn't have to be physical. I really like starting with physical.
Yeah.
I think there's just nothing, that's such an important experience to start with, a physical prototype, because I think that it forces you to work quickly and not get invested in it and not start noodling over how perfect it looks, even if it's something digital.
So there is no any web tool that can substitute
I
it.
like physical. I don't know if you guys want to add to it, but even if it's something digital, I like to start with the physical. So that gets you in a certain mindset. That's, I think, is critical.
I think the biggest problem in prototyping with teams that are in different locations is not necessarily the tools, but it's the tools for making the prototypes, but it's the tools for communicating. And yeah, you basically just have to have like a time when you can all get together, and you need to be able to have tools that you both can access, and maybe you can share files back and forth, or have like a common space where you put things like a base campsite or something like that.
Thank you.
I was wondering too if you've done like facilitations where there was a group of people maybe in a room and you might Skype into it,
Yes.
or that kind of thing. Have you done that?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, definitely. If there are people working together in the same space, that you can have someone facilitating remotely, facilitating the prototype. Yeah, I've done that many times. But I like to have the people together working with physical paper and pen. It's my preference. That's a question.
Oh, I did. So building off that idea, how long would you recommend these sessions last, especially when you're starting out? Would it be an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours? Can you give a better sense of that type of workflow?
When I started the groups at the Getty, they were originally an hour once a month. It's really difficult to get into prototyping in an hour. So if you're going to have a prototyping session where you want people to build and talk to each other, or maybe go out on the floor and talk to visitors, I would highly recommend setting aside 2 hours and even maybe doing it every other month. Because when you get into this process, as you guys saw, you want to like iterate, go to the next step, fix what's wrong, and go out and test again. So I would give yourself flexibility and a little bit of breathing room, because it can take a while.
So I actually disagree with you.
You do?
I would not spend more than 45 minutes on a prototype and go out and test it, and then come back and iterate.
Right, but that'll take 2 hours.
Yeah, okay, if you're having to do it. But I would never give a team 2 hours, because then you're going to get into the noodling discussions about how does it look, and oh, is this the accurate, perfect information? Like, forget that. You've got to start testing it and going out and putting it in front of users and iterating. So, but yes, if you fold in the time.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So, yeah, Laura.
A quick question. Have you ever tried to prototype the exhibition design process? So kind of, getting the curator, the designer, the interpretation, the education, whatever, together and just create a prototype together of the exhibition space and sort of somewhat test it with visitors?
That's what the Queensland Museum did, who co-authored the paper with us.
Okay.
So they talk about it in our paper. I don't feel that I can really talk about it, but they did this.
The example that I'll give is that they, in order to test movement through the space, they physically taped out in the actual exhibition space the sort of forms that they wanted to have for their interactives. And so then they could see in the space as people were walking around these, is it going to be wide enough? Is it going to be, so they're very committed to having sort of a rougher look in their galleries. I don't know if other institutions would go for that, but they are definitely into testing in the live exhibition space.
And science centers and museums for children tend to do this more often anyway. It's usually part of their practice.
Yeah, over here. Yeah, yep.
How do you get certain groups motivated to prototype? Sometimes some people get nervous in brainstorming situations, and some people are better at that. So what are some techniques that you think about in terms of getting people prepared to do it, and then setting their goals to understand what the results should be?
It's a big, it's a big part of the job. I would say Dana has some great information in her paper from last year that talks about warming up people, starting maybe with smaller groups of people who are already excited so that you can build a little bit into it.
And I have a couple blog posts on designthinkingformuseums.net about games I do to warm groups up. And I even have a game where you make someone a gift out of Post-its. And it's a game that gets you in the frame of mind. You make someone a gift, and you can't talk when you hand it to them, and you have to let them react. It's all about the user's reaction. I do all these warming up games just to get people in the mindset. Like, I brought you guys in cold. This was a great group, but normally we didn't really warm up for this. We just dove right in. So I would want to ease you in more, especially in an organization where there's going to probably be more resistance if you're doing this with your colleagues. I did this at SF MoMA, and it's really hard internally when you're doing this with your colleagues. So I started with small groups and a really low time commitment and warming everybody up, because I definitely had the crossed arms, and you got to ease into it.
And also, if you go to the Stanford D School website, they have a 1-hour video that leads you through that whole, it's a 1-hour design thinking process that includes prototyping. And so you can just play that with a small group of people and get them interested in it, and then have these people kind of seed other groups that you work with.
And for those in Europe, there's a sister organization, Design School Thinking in Potsdam, close to Berlin, and they have the same procedures.
Yes.
And they go on tour as well, so it's kind of not on the premises only, but it's preferred.
All right. Because that's the Hasso-Plattner Institute?
Yeah,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right, it's the sister school.
Over in the white sweater. Sorry, Laura.
Hi, we're trying to adopt a design thinking and prototyping at my institution, and it's happened a few times where we'll start the prototyping, very early paper prototyping process, or even before we start that process, where the idea gets out there or some prototypes get out there, and then the idea kind of gets taken over and co-opted by, say, a different department or a superior, and then it becomes a high-stakes project where you're really fully designing and launching something, not testing a concept. Just wondering if you have any advice on how to kind of help us make that shift and trust the process?
Is it possible for you to invite those people that it's getting out to your design process at the beginning?
Maybe. I think that once people get excited about what they see, there's that kind of fear of failure and, we want perfection, so then it just gets kind of escalated into a high fidelity project. But have you ever experienced that, or
I think
have any ideas?
bringing those people to watch tests along the way so that you're constantly putting users in front of whatever you're making and letting if you can't bring the staff to watch those tests, you can show them, edit a video down. 3 minutes, 5 minutes of video of somebody using whatever it is. So then you're doing that constantly, quick iPhone video. So it's like, I'm not just making this up, watch these users struggling with this and listen to what they're saying and what their needs are.
So we actually, in that digital publication project, when we did those tests, we had other people involved in the project, including the head of digital humanities at the Getty, sitting in on these. So it was a small room, so we only had 1 or 2 other people in addition to the test facilitators. But just being able to watch these people using these things, to understand where they're getting stuck, and see things that were working well, really got them to empathize with the testers and the people who are ultimately going to be using this product.
So I think we probably, last question?
Laura had a question. I know I want to make sure we get Laura, and then let's get moving.
Okay.
I wonder, since there is such a culture of perfection in museums, I wonder if you guys could speak to the process of building prototypes that you get out onto the floor, like not just in the public spaces, but actually in the galleries, and have visitors testing in the galleries when they're super rough. And because I can imagine there would be some resistance within particularly art museums to that, and whether or not you guys have any advice on how to get buy-in from staff about getting really rough prototypes on the floor to test.
You just do it. You just do it. That's true. I mean,
We just do
You're
it.
taking a piece of cardboard out there for 45 minutes. I didn't ask for permission. I just got a group of my colleagues, and we did this at the Getty Villa. We took like cardboard boxes and
tinfoil
frames out into the villa, and we just did it. And if somebody doesn't like it, we could leave. It's like we spent $5 on the supplies, so it's a pretty low investment. I don't know, that's probably not a satisfying answer to some people, but.
From a practical standpoint, a very useful one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For forgiveness money.
Yeah. Because if you go ask visitor services and security, you have to fill out 20 forms and wait 6 months. Like, screw that. I just did it.
So guys, I hate to wrap it up, but I know another session is starting right away. If you could drop off the supplies towards the aisle, that'd be great. Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.